Hello everyone, welcome to Marlin Chess Kids. Today I will show you the game played by Oleg and Jesus. The game starts with pawn to e4, e6, pawn to d4, d5, knight d2, bishop to e7, knight g to f3, knight f6. Then now the white keep on attack with the pawn to e5, attacking the knight. So this knight, you have this place to move, and the best safe place for the black to play is knight f to d7. And this is the first 5 move with white have an edge. Then the game to continue. Bishop to e2, c5, c3, knight c6, castling by white and castling by black, and rook to e1. Then queen to b6 with the idea of capture the pawn at d4. Here you have 3 pieces attacking the pawn at d4, while the white only have 2 pieces protecting. So with this, the black can able to win the position and win the extra pawn. Then knight b3 to protect the pawn, and queen to c7. And this is the first 10 move. You can see that the position is equal, and the game continue. Bishop to f4, then c4, and knight b to d2, b5, protecting the pawn and attacking, and a3, then a5, and black is keep pushing to have a strong idea of attack. The white play knight f1, and the idea of diverting the knight to the king area. Then the black move bishop a6, queen to d2, rook f to b8, and knight to e3. Then queen to d8, bishop to d1, and knight to f8. Then bishop to c2. Now the white is changing all the idea to attack to the king side. Then knight to g6, and g3 was played. And the white play play g3, then the black continue to attack with the pawn b4, attacking the pawn. Then instead of exchanging at the queen side, the white play h4 to keep on the attack and pressure on the king side. Then b takes c3, and now this is the first 20 move, and you can see that the black is slightly better in this position. Then the game continue. B takes c3, rook to b3, and this is a sacrifice idea where if the white capture with the bishop, then you can play pawn capture the b3, and then you can play bishop to g5, go for exchange, and a4 will place, and here you have a very strong pawn to attack. So that sacrifice will be able to compensate with the pawn and pushing forward. So after h5, the white do not capture the rook. Instead, the white continue to play h5 attacking the knight. Then the knight capture the bishop, and now the g takes f4. Then rook takes a3, capture the pawn, and rook capture, and the bishop capture again. And now the white continue to push attack with the pawn f5, and in this position is still equal the game, and this two pawn is very dangerous as the black should prevent the pawn to push forward. So in this game, after white play f5, the black capture the pawn at f5, he takes f5. And now the white recapture again the pawn, knight takes f5. Then the black play bishop to f8 to bring more material to structure of the pawn. And in this position, can you find what is the idea that the white can play and convert this equal position to a winning game? I give a couple of seconds to figure this out. Well, congratulations for those who have the beautiful idea, and for those who like to enjoy the show, here are the ideas that the white can play. The white can move the queen to queen f4, then bring the knight to knight g5 and sacrifice the knight at knight takes h7. And after this, what we have many ideas of mating mate, and you have a very strong attack for the white. It also have the bishop diagonal attacking the square at h7, and also the king can able to move to h1 and bring the rook to g1 and attack at the g7 square. So in the actual game, the white play queen to f4, then black play bishop to c8 attacking the knight, and now the white move knight to g5. This is a very strong move with a great move, and white want to mate with knight h6 and check the king. So if the black move incorrect, for example, if the black move rook to b8, then you can have a mating mate in 3. As example, knight to 6 and check the king. Then g to capture the pawn, g takes h6, and now you have queen to capture the pawn at f7 and check the king, and the king to h8, and queen takes h7 and checkmate. If the king move to h8, then you can just have a knight g capture f7 and a checkmate. A very beautiful checkmate. So in the actual game, after knight g5, black play rook to a7, prevent the sacrifice and mating mate in f7. And after this, here the white play the second great move of sacrifice by playing knight capture h7. And here is a very strong trade. Therefore, if the king to capture the knight, then you can have a knight to e7 and open check. And the knight later can capture the knight and win the queen or the rook. And this is the fork. So example, king take h7, then knight to e7, open check, then king to h8, then knight capture the c6 knight and attacking both the rook and the queen together. And here you'll be winning for the white. So black play a4 without capture the knight. And after this, the white play king to h2 and preparing to have a rook to g1 and attack the king at g7 and capture the pawn. And now rook g1 will win the game. So the black continue to play a3. And here rook to g1 without capturing the knight again. And now after this, the black capture the knight, king take h7. And here you have a mate in 5. I give you a couple of seconds to figure out how this mating net and mate in 5. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer. And for those who like to enjoy the show, here are the mating net. The first idea of mating net you can play is the discover check. So knight to e7, and here you have a discover check with the bishop attacking the king. And now the king only have one place to move. If the black move the king to h8, then you can have the queen to h6 and check the king. So queen to h6 and check the king, and here now there's nothing can block the check and the king cannot move. So new way to capture is use the pawn to capture the queen, and you have rook to g8 and checkmate the king, as the bishop is controlling the f7 square and the king have no place to move. So after knight e7 check, if the king block with the pawn, then you can just use the queen to capture the pawn, and you have a many mating idea. For example, queen takes f7, and if the king to move to h8, then you can just use the knight and capture the pawn at g6 and checkmate. So after use of king check, you can just defend with the bishop g7, and here you can capture with the queen takes the pawn at g6 check, and the king only have able to move to h8, and now the queen just capture the bishop and checkmate. So after knight f7, bishop block will not able to prevent the check, and if the black move f5, then here you can play a special pawn move by playing Passant and capture the pawn and allow the open check. So after f5, e takes f6 and Passant, and the king again you have a very limited place to move and only able to move to king h8. And after this, the same pattern come again, queen to h6 and check the king. And if there's only one place, the pawn to capture the queen, and you can have rook to g8 checkmate. So after en passant also, you can block with the bishop, and the same thing, the queen you capture the bishop, and now the king have two places. So if the king move to h6, then the queen to g5 will be the checkmate, and if the king move to h8, then queen to h7 will be the checkmate. So this is using the knight to open check, and another greater move will be moving queen to h6, a sacrifice of the queen and check the king. And here the king cannot capture, you only can go back to g8, and after you go to g8, you can have a rook sacrifice again, and king again cannot move, and after bishop capture, and you just capture the queen and checkmate. So if after the queen sacrifice you capture with the pawn, then you can have the knight to e7, and here again you have a open check. And after this open check, there's not much place you can play. You can only move with the f5 pawn. Again, you have the en passant idea, and check the king. And now the king is only way to move down, and you checkmate by the rook. And if you just block with the bishop, you just delay the checkmate, and after bishop capture, and now there's nothing to block the check, and the king need to move to h8, and here you have the rook to g8, and here is a checkmate. And with this, thank you.